All right, we return. Let's continue on with Witch on the Holy Night. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching an archive stream, blah, 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 this, that. You're probably watching from the previous VOD. Let's keep it going. You know what I got from Twitter? What did you get from Twitter? What did Twitter do this time? I got lemonade. What did you guys get? A post telling me the original release date of the first Dragon Ball episode. That's nice. What date was that? Something YouTube watchers are lame. Don't do them like that. They don't know they're not. They don't know they're supposed to show up to the stream, and the link to the Twitch channel is in the description down below. That you can watch me play this live. Oh, it's today. So February 26th, like 1980 something, when OG Dragon Ball started. Interesting. Me and my dad are gonna make chicken tacos. That sounds good. I don't know what I'm gonna do for dinner. I think me and Dizzy are having separate dinners because they asked me to make rice or the rest of the rice, so I assume that they're planning something different from me. But I'll figure it out later. All right, chapter 3. Here goes. Let me tell you how the events of yesterday transpired. All right, finally, we get to know what's going on. 1986. I thought it would have been earlier than that. But February 26, 1986 was the first episode of Dragon Ball. Curious. On moonless nights, you must never look back. Was it a lesson or was it a warning? It was so very long ago. At the time, I could not have imagined what my very being would become. One night, it came without warning. I was filled with an anxiety so heightened that it made me want to burst into tears, so I fled to my grandfather's workshop. Unlike my grandfather, I knew he smiled and kindly placed his hand upon my head. Yes, the Red Death follows your every step. Rather than consoling me, he sent me home with only those haunting words. What kind of shit is that? Yes, you are gonna die. That night I was certain that I sensed a shadow lurking behind me. Something or someone watching me from afar. But then little by little, year by year, it drew closer. Eventually, the presence that once felt like a spot on the horizon grew so close that I could feel its breath down the base of my neck. Of course, it was all in my mind. When I turned around, nobody was there. But that night marked the beginning. In hindsight, I later understood that the indescribable anxiety I felt was the dread of a certain death. How much time has passed since that night? The lingering deep in the recesses of my mind where childhood memories are kept. A faded storybook-esque memory. On dark nights, I still hear the faint echo of my grandfather's words, but no matter how strong the wind may howl or how entrancing the song of the girl next to me, I could never bury his ominous words completely. The girl beside me said. Alice's inflectionless voice spoke volumes over her role as the bystander. That night, there was only me and her. It was the night I would mark as the birth of who I am today. For what should have been quite the memorable night, it sure wasn't a promising start. Dense clouds blocked the starlight above like a black umbrella. Strong wind tore through the sky, carrying the heavy clouds with it. The hands on the clock in the middle of the park pointed skyward as if reaching for the moon. Damn, that was cool. It's time to repress that memory forever. Never think about it again. Unfortunately for them, tonight there was no moon to point at. The winter air grew fiercer as the night wore on. Inhaling felt as though it would freeze me from the inside. The air chilled me to the bone, threatening to pass up my spine directly to my brain, to prevent my mind from being paralyzed, and to prevent my fingertips from becoming stone. I sparked a flash using my internal rhythm and emotion.
触覚を譲るわ。幸運ね。あの位置なら刻んでおいたウィスプが止まる。
I responded to Alice with a nod. And then, for just a moment, I saw the ground. My legs quivered ever so faintly. I told myself they were shaking from the cold, but I wasn't so sure. In reality, they may have been numbed by the cold, but by fear. I breathed a sigh of relief. My humanity must still be intact if my emotions are still present. Before I could sink into a pool of my own sentimentality, the sensations from the bounded field flowed from Alice into me. Bounded field is something from Fate, so maybe it is the same. A transparent wall covered the entire park. An unrecognizable carpet rooted deep under the earth. Alice Kanoji's chants of the Mother Goose fairy tales permeated the night. The sensations became one with my body. I felt goosebumps on my quivering right arm. Someone had trespassed. The goosebumps crept in my right arm like ants, and slowly but surely made inroads for my heart. Holding back the desire to drive them out, I waited for them to reach a certain definitive position. A moonless night. The park's quaint streetlights were not enough to lift the darkness. The ants came to a stop. Far, far from my right arm, they had reached my very heart. Even without the aid of my sense of sight, I could see the intruder lurking in the darkness. To starboard, in the bushes about 30 steps back on all fours, it was beckoning with its right hand.
Soko!
The enemy's movement and my perception of it were in lockstep. I spun around. The enemy's arm stretched out like a spear. The lethal weapon aimed at the back of my head brushed my hair with breakneck speed. With the omniscience awareness granted by Alice's ward, I managed to avoid it by the skin of my teeth. My hair fanned through the air from the violence of the attack. The strike grazed my cheek and I felt a small sharp pain. It felt like the kiss of death. I switched the flow of my body's blood to a different cycle. The blood running through my veins at a few feet per second transmuted into an imaginary element. My body became a single circuit and my heart transformed into a completely different engine. Within me stirred an unknowable motion of immeasurable heat. Something mystic yet untapped by humankind that may be who I am. It is the fire of life behind all miracles and fables. What we may just call magical energy. I turned around, set the enemy in my sights, and held up one hand. My arm was the agent of my will. My lack of experience meant my magecraft would only be possible with the use of vocalizations and gestures. Magical formulae were engraved all over the park. All I had to do was ignite them. I needed to direct the flow of magical energy within my body to each formula. Typically, a mage acts as a conduit. Whether wired or wireless, the mage simply pours magical energy into the formula. Releasing this energy in the form of a projectile, stream, or any number of other methods would usually suffice, but in my case, it was the feeling of my limbs whipping out. I fought speed with speed. The enemy's arm extended 10 feet forward, became engulfed in flames. It was a nightmare at the park, the scene reminiscent of a campfire, but one in which the center of the flames contained a humanoid figure wriggling like a shadow puppet. The flames subsided just as naturally as it ignited. No crackling, no burning smell.
結界返すわ。死体を確認するから。
After telling this to Alice, I headed toward the motionless figure. I killed it. I killed it. I killed it. Regardless of who my opponent was, I just took someone's life. My throat parched. I swallowed the truth that without the sense of reality, I would have been helpless. So hard and bitter, impossible to swallow, but I tried to anyway. It was unnervingly calm. My heart pounded and my breath felt heavy, but my mind was nonetheless calm. By the time I realized it, the charred remains were already in front of me. Bracing for a counterattack, I carefully examined the corpse. Everything seemed fine. His body lying slumped to the ground was nothing but ash. But something wasn't right. To begin with, its remains didn't smell organic. Not willing to believe my hunch, I took a closer look at the corpse's face. All that greeted me was the featureless white face of a mannequin. Screaming, I kicked the mannequin. The corpse crumbled to ash and disappeared with the wind. No, this was no corpse. This was just a puppet, and for all our efforts to lure the master out, we had once again been tricked by a familiar. My debut, my first test out in the open, would be postponed for another day.
いつになったら一人前にって。あれ?
At that moment, I suddenly noticed something familiar in the corner of my eye. Something seemed strange about the slide on the other end of the park. It appeared as though its shadow were larger than it should be. Was I still drunk on the high of battle? It took me a second to realize what it was. Calling out was a mistake. Startled by my voice, the figure wearing a familiar high school uniform took a step back and then it broke into a sprint. Like someone running for their life. Or should I say, he was doing exactly that. In a rush, I shouted to my partner, but she hadn't even noticed the third party's presence in the first place. Though, that's not how bounded fields work, does it? Like, I'm pretty positive if you're in a bounded field, you'll sense anything within the bounded field. I'm pretty sure that's not how those work, unless the rules here are different than Fate. Embarrassingly, the fight had taken more out of me than I'd have liked. There was no time for niceties. For us, being seen here was a matter of life and death. Shaking off the numbness in my legs, I made up for the park's exit. I had to admire his escape. The witness party to the entire night's proceedings had disappeared into the darkness of the residential district without a trace. Okay, no, she was like, okay, no, that's weird. Why didn't... Complaining to myself wouldn't bring him back. Wouldn't bring back the figure in uniform. Bitter at my own incompetence, I gave up the chase. Though temporary, the park had become Alice's woods. For anyone within a few feet of the park, other park goers identifiable, sorry, forgot how to read English for a second. Other park goers' identifiable features and voices became murky, like stuffed fairy tales. Tonight's proceedings may have had a witness, but our identities were still hidden. Then there was still a chance. I returned to the park. That uniform was without a doubt from my high school. That clue was enough. If he was a schoolmate of mine, I had plenty of methods to flesh him out. Amidst my grumbling, I set my priorities straight. Before some strange rumors spread, I needed to seal the witness's mouth shut. That was the highest priority, quickly and without mercy. Looking up, I saw Alice's previously distant figure. Though she was in as much trouble as I was with her existence as the mage also exposed, she had but one thing to say. Her statue-like figure, staring into the darkness, seemed more expressionless than calm. I was pissed off. Her inscrutable voice resembled the moonless night, so much it made me angry. Okay, that was chapter 3. There really isn't any other way of saying this. I'm a magician. I've been helping my dad clean. What did I miss? You missed the fight that happened last night between the mannequin and in Aoko. Aoko shot that bitch with magic, set it on fire. whoever they were trying to get to come out didn't, and it was pretty apparent that Sojudo saw them, but they don't know that it was him. They just know that it was someone from their school. Kind of like those witches in fairy tales who live alone in the woods and perform miracles with the wave of a finger. While the popular depiction of it differs from reality, it's closer to the truth than you know. Though, just so we're clear, no, I don't fly through the sky on a broom. I cannot transform animals or speak with small birds. Modern mages are nothing so fanciful. So is that why Aoko is going to the school? No, that happened already. As in, like, the sequence of events is she was already going to the school. Homeboy transferred in. A week later, that fight happens, and then what we saw in chapter 2 was the day after what we saw in chapter 3. Our existence sounds unbelievable, but we're quite grounded. Though it may seem like we can do anything, we're actually majorly constrained. And while I still have a lot to learn about it, this is my real job. Sounds a lot more romantic than being a high school student, right? Naturally, this is a secret I don't just share with anyone. A mage must do everything in their power to conceal their work. That is the first and most important of the association's 10 laws. Not that I'm tempted to let the cat out of the bag in the least. My secret identity as an honor student is intact, and absolutely no good would come of me revealing my true nature. If anything, it'd only lead to more headaches. And that's why I do everything in my power to keep it a secret. Of course, if I'd accomplished anything as a magician by now, then maybe I'd see it differently. I fantasize about revealing my secret life's work to a single special person when I finally make something of myself. Yeah, it'd be pretty stellar to confess one day. By the way, I'm a magician. That idea alone is enough to keep me from spoiling the big reveal, regardless of the association's rules. My grandfather patted me on the head when I shared those thoughts with him. I don't know if that was praise or what, but I remember that his touch was gentle. I first learned that I would be succeeding my grandfather on the day I graduated middle school. When I returned home, there he was. Your elder sister left on a journey. From this day forth, you were their heir to the Aozagi. He said it in such a matter-of-fact way. So the way that in Fate that magicians work is that, generally speaking, magic families only have one child, and that being is that the child then inherits all of the magical teachings, and it should become stronger through that child. Not that really matters, it's weird that it's not unheard of because that happens in Fate too, but it's weird that she got put in this position as quickly as she did, and that her parents aren't there in the School of Mages. It just skipped over her parents from her grandfather. I knew that the Aozaki family passed down this old tradition of magecraft, but to be honest, I never imagined I would be the one to wield it. Magecraft is supposed to be passed down to a single child, like I said. It was my sister's role to take the mantle, and I had no interest in dedicating myself to so many rules and routines. I planned to live a normal life. I had hopes and dreams for the future. I didn't realize she had a sister, and an older one at that. I felt bad for my sister, but I was determined to live my life my way. And while I managed to do just that for a time, I was blindsided by a vicious counterpunch. Since then, I've been thrust headlong into a world I've only observed from afar. It was a hell of a way to start high school, but I suppose it wasn't all that bad, all things considered. A lot has happened since then. I was so dazed by this newfound life that a year of school motored right by. I was a second year before I knew it. Thankfully, nothing drastic has happened. The 6 months my roommate and I totally tried to kill each other, notwithstanding. As it happens, I've got a natural talent at this magic stuff, so I've yet to have any hangups there either. I'm only human, so I've had my fair share of headaches for sure, but I've never once had to worry about my future. I thought my life would be smooth sailing all the way. If only everything had gone to plan last night. Alice Kuwanji, I keep saying their name wrong. Alice Kuwanji asked Aoko Ozaki the second she entered the house. Her dark eyes succeeded where her voice failed to communicate the gravity of the situation. Aoko took off her unflattering coat, hung it on the hanger, and sat down on the sofa. Alice sat across from her with the table separating them.
そっちはよくないわね。偵察に行けるのは7個ぐらい。ここのところ使ってばかりで作り置きをする余裕もなかったし。
Alice's gaze drifted from Aoko to the box on the table.
あの夜、町を監視していた奴はいないの？町の偵察は完璧なんでしょ？そいつら。それは昼間の話よ。夜間飛行は危険が多いわ。
Meaning they were of the least use when needed the most, Aoko sighed.
そういうあなたは朝は随分と強気だったけど。ん？ああ、こっちは予定通りよ。明日までには絞り込めると思う。今朝、飛び丸にうちの生徒の自宅と行動時間を調べさせたから。あの時間に公園をうろつくやつはめったにいないし、簡単に割り出せる。そう簡単に行くの？行くわよ。伊達に生徒会に勤めてないわ。その程度のデータは揃えてある。月1のバイト先はおろか、親しい友人宅との移動時間、その優先順位まで調べ上げてるんだから。
Thank God there's no magic bomber? What do you mean by that?
人には見せたくなかったリストだけど、そんな余裕ないでしょ？だから、そういうのが向いてる副会長にやらせたの。
Instantly, the creation of the secret file started the moment Aoko became student council president. The mere rumor of his existence was enough to strike fear into the entire student body.
そう。徹底しているわね。相変わらず。
Alice was only mildly surprised. It had been almost 2 years since they first started living together. She knew as well as anyone that when Aoko put her mind to something, she saw it through to the end.
ま、私もあれがこんな風に役立つとは思ってもみなかったけど。
What happened last night was far beyond a mere exception to the rule. This predicament should not have been possible.
それより、原因は分かったの？
So, I don't know if you've been listening the whole entire time, Rocket
があ
Pal.
ったなんてのは聞かないわよ。
Yeah. So, I don't know if you've been listening the whole entire time, Rocket Pal, but apparently our male main character was inside the bounded field, and that motherfucker just wasn't able to be sensed. I was thinking about a plot where the bomber who was the janitor went to a specific office building and found the address and oh. Yeah. Well, I don't know what you're referring to, but he's so autistic that he couldn't be sensed. Aoko glared at her. The ward was Alice's responsibility. If it was to blame for last night's trouble, Alice had to own up to her fair share. Alice and Aoko may have been roommates and partners, but it was a relationship of convenience. While lineage had brought them together, they were more like enemies than allies. Ultimately, they were just not a match. Where there was a blunder, it was punished. Didn't know he was an MC? Well, we're getting his perspective, and so far we're only getting Aoko's and the other dude's perspective, so I assume that he's a protagonist. Where there was an opening, it would be attacked. If there was even an opportunity, the two of them would kill each other in the event of such a moment. Alice locked eyes with Aoko. Aoko's fierce gaze could make a grown man cower in fear, but Alice did not bat an eyelash.
仮の話だけど、あの結界に落ち度があったのなら、今まで何度もこういう状況になっていたでしょうね。
I suppose you're right, Aoko agreed, as the question reaffirmed her trust in Alice.
結界のあり方は完璧だったのね。絶対とまでは。
Alice answered as flatly as ever. A bounded field is like a sanctuary sealed away from the real world. Steps are taken whereby a certain area is cut off from the outside world. There are various kinds of bounded fields. There are physical ones that close off an area behind a wall, and less tangible ones that use mirrors, mist, or trees to conceal that which occurs within. However, when closing off an area to the outside world, you cannot avoid communicating the abnormality's existence. In other words, the area may be closed off to the outside world, but it's impossible to hide the fact that it is closed off. In time, someone will take an interest in the sealed area even if they cannot see what's going on inside. Some might say that is putting the cart before the horse. The ideal field would be one that was both undetectable and impervious to interference from the outside. That was exactly the kind Alice had generated in the park the night before.
その場所に用があっても、今はないように思わせれば、誰もそこには立ち入らない。隠したい場所の周りに、一時的な意識の改ざんを促す結界を張る。手間はかかるんだけど、1時間程度の人よけには信頼性は高い結界よね。アリスの鏡を使った一級品だし、途中で破れることもない。事実、入ってきたのはあの人形だけだとはっきり感じられた。これで完璧じゃなかったら何が完璧なのよ。私もわからない。森作りに落ち度はなかったわ。森は数日かけて栽培したものだし、今まで通り信頼できる結界よ。けど例外があったのなら、どこかで見落としがあったのね。
Though Alice's words concealed the possibility, her eyes expressed her confidence that she had overlooked nothing.
参った。こうなると、一番いいのは、あいつが人形使いだってパターンね。それならかろうじて納得できる。問題は、侵入した時の違和感をどうやって消したかってことだけど。
The thought of being targeted by this individual was pretty terrifying. If they were able to penetrate Alice's field, it could only mean that their skill in magecraft was superior to Alice's. Alice, in her current state, would be completely helpless against such a foe.
その線はないわ。彼は部外者よ。ムクドリはともかく、ロビンが後をたどれなかったもの。魔力の気配は全くなし。誰かの魔術で操られている犠牲者というのもないわね。
Aoko was quickly running out of straws to grasp at. And that means she was out of questions to ask. Are those chocolates or Dragon Balls? Why can't they be both? All she could do was call it bad luck and leave it at that.
魔術師の秘密を見られて、おまけに目撃者を逃がした。か。普通の高校生の悩みじゃないな。
Alright, so with that explanation of the bounded field, I've determined that that Fate's magic system and Tsukihime's magic system is the same magic system. That also explains the Dead Apostles. This might even be the same world. The sofa groaned as she could lean back. Her gaze went up to the brown ceiling with a sigh. It wasn't much of a view. She was becoming increasingly depressed.
Aoko, 覚悟を決めておいて。
There will not be any parasite magic. I think the parasite magic was specific to that family. So I think it'll be exceedingly rare if we see that shit again. Her roommate's voice seemed indifferent, but Aoko just kept staring up at the wooden ceiling.
それとも、あなたにできないのなら、私が言ってあげてもいいけど。
I guess Fate is this world but with servants. I mean, if it is the same world, there are dead apostles in Fate. It's just this world deals more with dead apostles than the other one. So what is her specialty? I don't know, actually, because every time she does things in the game, she just shoots fucking beams like Goku. So let's see if we can find that out real quick. Let me see. It says her personal information. She likes faithful dogs and she dislikes faithful dogs. Her magecraft is called Star meaning Starbell. Processing magical energy from a numbers. Number crest, converting it, now putting it into Notori-con. I don't really know what that means. And the magic she uses is called Magic Blue. I'm about to click on that, see what it's actually called. It's some form of astromancy, it says. I can't click on it. It won't let me see it. Fifth magic, also known as Magic Blue, is one of the 5 remaining magics in the modern age. Its exact domain is unknown, but its abilities are related to time travel. According to Alice Kuanji, the 5th magic is about deceiving time, equivalent to running a scam. Alright then. Time magic, fuck. Technically space magic space and time is the same thing, so saying space magic would also not be wrong if you wanted to be super technical about that. That's light magic like Mickey. A cool-mannered girl's statement carried an equally spicy implication. Aoko took the words in slowly with as much sincerity as she could muster. It was like trying to swallow molten lead. Though she sounded hollow even as it popped into her head, this was clearly different from last time. While the aim was indeed the same, the circumstances surrounding her target were clearly different. She may have been determined before, but that was as a mage. If enemies emerged, she would kill them. If she was challenged, she would step up to fight. It was a fight between 2 mages and her opponent was in the wrong. Even if this could only end in death for one of them, it was an outcome both parties could accept. Kill or be killed. Morality had no weight on the scale. But this time was different. Her opponent was neither enemy nor mage. Even if she was prepared to kill them, this person was likely not ready to die. That's why morality did factor into it now. Was she truly up to the task for murdering an innocent person? Could she swallow the fact that this was a common occurrence for a mage? She snorted sardonically. Being a mage did not mean that Aoko was some kind of monk who could cut ties with the real world on a whim. If there was one thing Aoko hated, it was doing things without conviction or an understanding of exactly why she was doing them. When she acted, she preferred to act decisively. As she said it, she got up from the sofa, having had her fill of the ceiling for one day. Aoko had returned to the Aoko as of always, and Alice was done probing her. As if to reward her, Alice produced a small bottle. It's morphine. It fit neatly in the palm of her hand. The bottle looked completely out of place in her Stop using the word slender. You see what I'm saying? It's every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds, something's gotta be fucking slender on a girl. Stop that shit. Use a different word. Don't use the word at all. Just say her fingers. The glass was cloudy and it appeared empty. Some shreds of paper remained on the front where there once had been a label. Aoko stared at the bottle suspiciously.
収納の小瓶。ちょうど一つ余ってたからあげるわ。はい？名前は忘れたけど、中国の小説に出てきたのと同じよ。
Aoko was miraculously able to parse what Alice meant.
それってレンゲ堂の兄弟の話？じゃああの赤いひょうたんと同じなわけ
？I have no idea what you're referring to.
言いたくないけど、そこら辺の風邪薬のラベルを無理やり剥がして小瓶に見せかけてるそれが？
Alice looked at the bottle and acknowledged how ordinary it looked. She also understood that she would not be the one using it as she set it on the table.
赤いひょうたんじゃなくて、陽子玉の上瓶の方。そういう問題じゃない。私は魔術師としての雰囲気を論じてるんだ。些細なことを気にするのね。せいろがんの瓶じゃないだけいいと思うけど。
She made a good point.
蓋を開けて相手の名前を尋ねればいいから。ただし相手に抵抗する意志が残っている場合、小瓶は割れるから気をつけて。
Aoko raised her eyebrows.
ちょっと待った。抵抗する意志があるとダメって眠っている時にやれってこと？それは試したことがなかったわ。眠っているのに返事をする人っているの？たまにいるけど、まあ確かに珍しいわね、そういう人。
In that case, one would have to weaken them until they were about to pass out.
ああ、そうそう。薬や魔術がかかっているとその重さでも割れるから気をつけて。
That seems really fragile then.
使えない。それってほとんど役立たずってことじゃない。
Yeah, like that seems pretty fragile.
それは青子次第ね。
Alice turned away as she replied, as if the topic no longer mattered to her.
はあ、アリスがこういう小道具好きなのは知ってたけどね。これも趣味なわけ？
Aoko asked, hoping Alice would deny it.
多分。それでどうするの？持っていくのか行かないのか。
Without answering, Aoko dithered a bit before taking the bottle and putting it in her pocket. She figured she might be able to find some use for it. Two hours had passed, and the clock struck 9. The conversation had moved from the drawing room to the sunroom and had manifested into kind of scene one would not expect in such a mansion.
まあ本当はね、飛び丸に任せる気はなかったんだけど。
A hot earthenware pot sat on the table. Aoko spat out complaints to no one in particular as she plucked food from it with her chopsticks. Tonight they were eating a traditional Japanese meal that looked out of the place in this mansion. When it came to this kind of Japanese hot pot, I kind of want to try a hot pot, where all one had to do was buy and boil ingredients. It was usually Aoko's responsibility. Alice sat across Aoko as she silently poked at the pot with a fork.
山城のやつが来るなり、しずきくんはまだ部活に入っていないから面倒を見てあげてくれないかな、なんて言ってくるもんだからさ。全校生徒の行動範囲なんて見直す気力なくなっちゃったのよ。
The egg she had plucked was still silky as a baby's bottom, so she returned it to the pot. I don't know why I needed to know that information. She settled for the shiitake noodles instead. If we ever meet up in person, we're doing hot pot. Sounds good to me.
そりゃあのバカがバイトで忙しいのは知ってるわよ。
Huh? Okay. Yeah?
Why the fuck are there so many scents? Because he was like listing all of them, and I'm like, huh?
There's solid snake. There's liquid snake. There's solidest snake.
Yes.
There's naked snake.
Yes.
I think that's it. There's ocelot. There's liquid ocelot. There's venom.
He's like, oh, so the old one from the Metal Gear Solid 1 or the one older. And he was like, does he do the RAR? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, that one. And then he's like, I think you like Fortune. I'm like, Fortune?
That's the lady I showed you with the railgun.
Yes. And then I was telling you about the dude with bees. We got into a discussion originally about Death Stranding. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know if I play Death Stranding. I probably play Death Stranding. And then I play until I get to Mads Nicholson. And he's like, why, are you afraid of Mads Nicholson? I'm like, no, the opposite, actually. He's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, also Guillermo del Toro. He's like, also, we saw, there are police here about a car that got broken into. It's over by where the garages are at on that side. And we saw 2 fire trucks at Quick Trip, which is a gas station, and I was clapping, and he was like, don't clap if it's a homeless person. I'm like, okay, fine. But I don't know if it was a homeless person. It was the Maricopa Fire Department and the Avondale Fire Department. One of those was technically an ambulance. But the fire department trucks are technically color-coded. The Maricopa one is yellow.
This is just giving me a lot of information. I have nothing to do with any of it. I don't know.
I was gonna go back to the potatoes with eggs and
Why are you staring at me like that? The cat is like staring at me. It was very weird.
well, and if I make they're on their way to go to it's I guess night. Are we gonna do dinner?
It's not.
Huh?
No, it's mine. Remember we switched so you. That if I have to work, yeah, but I don't. So. I think he wants nap time, but I'm doing stuff.
It's not time for nap time, damn you.
Yeah, it's not time for nap time. He's trying though. You can win. I'm not exactly hungry yet. Or whatever you want to do. I want to say your name a lot. I want to say your name a lot. One of the characters has your name. No. Yeah, it is.
No, it ain't.
Okay.
No, it ain't.
It kind of is.
No, it ain't.
Well, I mean, we still call you that, don't we? Twice? Well, to you. I've said it multiple times, not to you. It's like, oh yeah, Dizzy. I'm just gonna say Dizzy to people at work who don't know who that is.
The only motherfucker at work that literally everybody knows is fucking my enemy, which is Yvonne. And that's because that bitch talks to everybody. But like when you pass by her, I swear she's fucking talking to nobody. But she's only doing that shit when you pass by her. So I'm like, bitch, are you talking to me or are you not talking to me? Because my hands are ready to eat for everyone and I will fight you.
Yeah.
Talking shit.
Just talk shit back.
I'm pretty sure she's crazy though. So 90% sure she's fucking sick. I like the shower and
So you want to continue Metal Gear?
yes, but I don't know. Would it be something that do you think it's something that I may?
Okay. Did you say you wanted to play it? The reason why I didn't have you play it, because I have all the games. The reason why I didn't have you play it is because you don't play games consistently enough. You're still on Silksong. So it would be faster if we just watched all the cutscenes, which is what you're gonna have to do for some of them anyway. Metal Gear Solid 4 isn't really a game as much as it is a long ass cutscene.
The male is a dead body.
We can get you to play that shit. That's the one you're probably just gonna have to make up your own mind after playing it. Cause like it was one of those things where I was like, oh, the gameplay loop is we're just walking back and forth. Actually, this is kind of nice.
I'll play and listen to the music, and then I will eventually come upon Matt Nicholson, and then I'll be like, all right, Gameplay over.
And then you'll say Magnus Nicholson is correct, and then the gameplay will be over.
Say that he's wrong?
Why he was in fact just correct.
I'm not gonna say that he's wrong.
I think Lynx and Dizzy could talk about Metal Gear. No, they can't because Dizzy doesn't know anything about Metal Gear. That's what I'm doing.
Give me like 6 months, and then we can circle back to this.
Yeah, I still have a tab open for Metal Gear Solid 3, and we stopped at the bridge scene, and we just haven't gotten past it. That's like the first mission in the game. That's like the first mission of the game. We just haven't gotten past it. So we're doing Metal Gear today.
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want to end stream without some kind of magical shit happening because I was promised magical shit. I promised them magical shit, and magical shit hadn't happened yet. But magical shit just happened. Kind of.
Yay!
Where's my fucking magic? Yeah, we just got magical shit, so I'm okay with ending stream eventually. But I probably will get to a good stopping point and then call it there. I bring you parasite magic? No. Shut up.
You need a fucking deworming if that's happening.
Well, she definitely got dewormed. Close the door. Thank you.
だからできるだけ春先までのんびりしてて、あんなのでも親身になってくれそうな部の部長に当たってみたのに、ありがとうの一つもないってのはちょっと尺に触るわよね。ねえ、聞いてるアリス。
As if her mouth was full, she simply nodded in response. Her expression stated that she had no interest nor opinion on the matter, but she at least appeared to be listening. Satisfied, Aoko nibbled some of her hand-panned fish cake. That sounds great.
それに私、いい人なんて言われるやつは信用できないのよ。あろうことか、飛び丸までそんなこと口走る始末だし。あれはいい人なんじゃなくて、ただぼんやりしてるだけなんだっての。
I mean, every anime is a slice of life if you think about it. It's a slice of their life.
だいたい、あそこまで言われて怒りもしないなんてどうかしてるわ。
Her thoughts went to what happened in the student council room earlier that day. She remembered how non-responsive Sojiro had been to her words. His unconcerned face alone was enough for her to swallow the rest of her handpan without chewing it.
何が分かってるんだなよ。
His words were a lot like those that ended her childhood.
青子ちゃんは分かっているんだね。それでも自分であり続けられるということはとても強いことなんだよ。
Perhaps it was meant as a compliment, but she took it as a patronizing way to pity her, because the person who said it had acted like she was looking at a wounded animal.
あんな変態の言ってたことなんて今更どうでもいいけどさ。
That episode might have made her the most confused she had ever been in her life. Yet what shocked young Aoko the most was the look of pity on her face from the person she admired the most.
喧嘩。
The abrupt comment stopped her in her tracks.
ごめん、聞いてなかった。喧嘩ってあの喧嘩？
Alice nodded.
あなたの感想だけじゃ状況はよくつかめないけど、つまり青子はその人に喧嘩を売りたかったのね。
Alice bit in. Sorry, her face took me out. Alice bit into the very last handpan. Her remark was unexpected, but completely on point.
なんでそうなるのよ。私はあんなのと1秒だって関わりたくないだけだってば。
Why are you lying?
だいたいそれどころじゃないし、興味とか全くないし。
Why are you
会
lying?
話もこれ以上ないってぐらい簡潔に切り上げたし。
But you're lying, though.
ならどうして今そんな話をするの？
See?
それはあんたに今日の調査過程を知らせてあげたのよ。それ以外何があるっていうの？
One other reason could Alice be suggesting Aoko had for bringing him up? It would be several hours later in bed that Aoko realized that she had dug her own grave.
いいけど、私は別に。ただ、青子は本当にその人が嫌いなの？
Alice ate her hot pot in silence as if she was honoring some sort of sacred ritual. Didn't realize how hungry I was until we started cooking. I just said I wasn't hungry, but I think I'm starting to get there. Her face was indifferent as always, but she was secretly enjoying how flustered Aoko was. Aoko remained oblivious to this. Normally, she would have noticed immediately, but she was not quite herself at this moment.
本当にって、そりゃそうよ。気に食わないって何度も言ってるじゃない。
そう。具体的には？
は？具体的にはって、そんなのに理由なんて。
You don't, but you do have a reason. She trailed off as she finally realized how disagreeable she was being. She could come up with no reason why. Her instinct had told her that she was just incompatible with things. But why such a strong reaction? More than anything in the world, Aoko hated emotions without reasons and decisions without no rationale.
嫌いなものは嫌いなんだから、ちゃんとどっかに理由があるんだと思うけど。
She became more flustered the more she talked. Unfortunately for her, she could not come up with a coherent reason to hate Sojiro Shizuki. It was not his fault that he had zero common sense, it was the fault of the environment he grew up in. At some point that becomes his own fault, but I'd say he's probably making it up right now, right? In fact, it was admirable that he was trying so hard to adapt to a civilized society. Yeah, see? As clueless as he might seem, he was not a complete waste of space. If he seemed a bit slow, it was only because his gentle nature compelled him to think before acting. When one looked at everything objectively, the conclusion was obvious. As much as she was loath to admit it, he really was unassuming do-gooder everyone had him pegged as.
ちょっと本気かっての。人間的に悪いところ、本当にみじんもないのか？あれ。
There was plenty, so she left it at that for now. The chopsticks she had been using came to a stop. She was getting very annoyed. An irrational hatred burned through her head. Unable to come to terms with her feelings, she desperately tried to analyze Sojiro, but her mind only went in more circles. Alice fixed Aoko with a deadpan stare.
呆れた。
A small sigh.
らしくないわね、青子。
Those words were the final blow. Aoko felt the floor fall from under her. She was unable to leave her chair until long after Alice had finished eating and left. However, even after getting knocked down, Aoko Ozaki was not one to be kept that way. She made short work of cleaning up after dinner and conceding the first bath of the night to Alice, left the drawing room. What? After conceding the first bath of the night to Alice, left the drawing room. Okay, sorry, it was a continuation of the first statement. Since it was customary in these sorts of mansions to turn the lights off when leaving an empty room, the only lit areas of the house were the drawing room and the two girls' bedrooms. The upstairs was enveloped in darkness. Aoko briskly made her way to the deepest part of the east wing along the long corridor, illuminated by the light of the moon, and arrived at her room.
結論として、やっぱり騙し討ちは気に食わない。
She had been considering this on the way down from the corridor, or perhaps ever since she left the drawing room. The moment she entered her room, she drew her proverbial line in the sand.
やるにしても隠れるのはなし。正面から堂々と向かい合って理由を言う。
This was not a concession driven by feelings of sympathy or compassion. For her, this was simply the way things ought to be.
よし、そうと決まれば。
After settling her resolve, she headed to the study next door.
木曜棚の当時欄、緑の背表紙とは。
Without hesitation, she removed one book from the countless volumes on the shelf. The introductory textbooks transported here from Aozaki's residence were separated into 6 shelves labeled Monday to Saturday. Aoko had organized the books by topic, genre, and purpose, and had more or less memorized exactly what was in her personal library. Referencing any of this material took her no time at all. It was to be expected from keeper of the study. Though this keeper's fiefdom was nothing more than a small room. Both Aoko and Alice had given up all hope on the cluttered mess of a library in the annex. Nevertheless, on occasion, Aoko would have no option other than to give Alice a heads up and visit when the study did not meet her needs.
できればそれは避けたいところだけど、と。
Aoko placed the thick green book down and took a seat. The desk she sat at was sturdy and uninviting. It wasn't the sort of furniture girls her age grew attached to, but she liked.
Landorf to Tutu is resumed for 48 months with message reading about reading. Thank you, Landy, for the fantastic 48 months of support. Let's continue to explore and learn together, all while creating chaos and mischief with Pixie. Your dedication means the world.
What's good, Landy? Yes, we are in fact reading about reading. So I don't know if you know about this, Landy. Yeah, I've just completely ignored her. The only reason she's still on is because it makes a billionaire that much poorer. I don't know if you actually knew this because we found out today that the magic system in Fate and the magic system in Tsukihime is the same magic system. Like, I knew there were some similarities, like such as like the priest having keys, having the black keys, and the dead apostles and whatnot. But the magic system is also the same. So it's highly likely this is also the same world. Also, Aoko is nothing like how she is when you see her in Tsukihime. I put that in the Discord, but we were streaming already. It wasn't the sort of furniture girls her age grew attached to, but she liked its minimalist elegance nonetheless. She flipped lightly through the book's old, worn pages.
アリスみたいな結界は私にはまだ無理だ。人払いはその場所自体に頼らないといけないか。
The mountains? The woods? The school building empty at night? The beach? Take me to the beach. You can have the mountains. She was looking for a place that would be, except for the worst of luck, void of all people, allowing her to forego the use of magecraft.
茨の壁だの魔力の霧だの。そういう回りくどいのもなんだしな。退路を断つっていうなら、もっとこう見た目にも状況的にも派手な方が効果的だし。
Wondering about how there had to be some basic spell that fit her need, she continued to flip through the pages. It goes without saying that she was looking for a way to deal with the witness from the previous night. Magecraft's uses were many, but not all-encompassing. Pretty sure it's a parallel universe. That would make sense as well. I mean, there's a lot of Fate spin-offs that are just parallel universes. Like, I'm currently watching the anime that's currently airing called Fate Strange Fake, I think it's called. If you type in Fate Fake, you'll probably find it. That's just, everything is different. Everything is fucking different, and it's really interesting to see how different everything is. Gilgamesh is still a dick. He's not the same kind of dick as he is in the main timeline, but he's still a dick. So do you think fans of Fate are fake fans? So many fake this, fake that, fakey, fake. Fundamental Magecraft was good for making many things or phenomena that existed already, while more or less bypassing the time and resources conventional means would require. It was, however, unable to manifest phenomena that were impossible in this world. But I guess
Faker!
I forgot about that. But I guess that's how they explain fake characters in Melty Blood. I mean, that explains why there's always crossovers, like why Saber is in Type Lumina. It was essentially an equivalent exchange that used a variety of shortcuts. A phenomenon made possible by human hands actualized by an individual's power. That was generally what Magecraft was. To give a simple example, if Aoko was so inclined, she could make an entire lake appear at the mansion. However, it had to be something that existed within this world, nothing that not even the smallest matter could escape from the unbreakable law. Even if Aoko were to release a level of heat on par with with a negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit fighter jets. Oh, sorry, F-15. On par with the F-15 fighter jets afterburner that would only be possible if the circuit named Aoko Aozaki acted as a temporary input variable in a magic formula. The derived equivalence was simply a value that already occurred in reality. If the variable in the equation did not exist elsewhere in reality, the spell would not be valid. The imaginary element known as magical energy was like a lie that could slip its fantasy through the network of order at the moment of ignition. Giving form to the non-existent, illusions invading reality was something the universe did not allow.
とは言っても、エーテルは基本何にでもできるんで、大元が嘘なんだっけ。魔力だけで構成されたものは、幻想扱いされて急速に消えていくとか。典型的な結界、茨の壁とかは、もともと茨を生やしておいて、魔力で一気に成長、強化してるものだし。
So for people who watch me play Fate, this is why our protagonist is so interesting, because he's able to... He scared me. He's able to make things. There are illusions that are quickly dissipated, but he does make swords. Bro do be making swords.
魔力っていうのは結局、使い勝手のいいガソリン兼、事象に火をつける火花ってわけで。
Okay. She very clearly said the word gasoline can. Why did we localize it as something different?
なんて言いつつ、架空要素云々より、基本的な回路の接続と、魔力を加工して弾くことぐらいしかできないのよね。
Look at blacksmiths and they aren't special. Well, I mean, in the sense that he can literally use it like as... Actually, just click that video that I put in the Discord. You'll understand what I mean. Not the fight one, but the other one. Oh no, I didn't put the fucking... it was a gift that I sent, and that wasn't a video. Never played Kogetsu Toya, but from what I can tell, it was mostly just a dream or something, right? That's the fake sequel, right? Yeah, it was mostly just a dream, I think. I think I played it. It was mostly just a dream and you fuck everybody. That's what happens. Like, the actual plot of that is that, Shiki saves Len from getting killed, and Len is like, how about you have a dream where you fuck everyone? And I mean everyone. And that's all that happened, really. You don't really need to play it, to be honest. It doesn't add anything. Laughing to herself, she looked for a bounded field or something similar more suited to her current ability. The identity of the witness was still unknown, but if they were a classmate of Aoko's, she'd had any number of pretexts by which to lure them out. That was... the problem was after that.
そうなると、問題は命中率よね。一撃で決めないと逃げられちゃうだろうし。
To be honest, she wasn't confident she could handle this smoothly without Alice's support. But Aoko saw no reason to ask for help given that the target in question was a regular bystander. Fledgling as she was, she still had her pride as a mage. She continued to turn through the pages rhythmically. In the midst of the fluttering sound of thumbing through the volume, Aoko suddenly stopped her finger at a certain page.
見つけた。
She smiled to herself. It was a simple formula that she tucked away somewhere in the recesses of her memory, a spell for simple destruction.
檻をね、作ればいいのよ。狩りをする時の常套手段じゃない。獲物を逃げられないようにするのは。
She placed the bookmark in the book, closed it, and got up to return to her room. Suddenly, she felt someone watching her. Through the window, she saw her. What? Ah! Through the window, she saw her in the night, a girl staring back with a cold-hearted expression. The girl's face was hers, the expression undoubtedly her own. She began planning how to erase the witness. Though to say it was something as elaborate as a plan was overkill. It was just a job. She was going to make a cage and then lure her prey into it. There was no getting around it. Premeditated violence.
さ、そろそろアリスは上がったかな?
She mumbled out loud as if the bath would return some warmth to her chilled heart. About 20 minutes had passed since she gave Alice that privilege of using the hot water first. Alice tended to bathe quickly, finishing well under 10 minutes. Her roommate was the type that could not understand the spirit of the bath, treating it as nothing more as a necessity for looking after one's body. For Alice, the concept of staying at a hot spring inn sounded more like a chore than anything, though in this regard, Aoko had to agree.
よし、浴場はカラッと。あれ、今に電気ついてる?
It was unusual for Alice to sit in the drawing room after her bath. On nights when she had nothing to discuss, it was her style to return directly to her bedroom.
アリス、いるの?
Alice nodded. With no book in hand, it appeared that Alice had been waiting for Aoko.
そういうこと。私も信用ないな、ほんと。
Aoko scratched her head in exasperation. Was it that Alice was worried about her, or had no faith in her? Her expression was so calm, Aoko could hardly figure out what she was thinking.
方針なら決まったけど、聞く?
その顔を見れば聞かなくてもわかるわ。
That's not a good sign.
迷いがなくなったのはいいことだけど。悪い癖ね、青子。
Her tell is so she could tell what her plan is by looking at her face? Alice let out a small sigh. It was unusual for Alice to make such a display of her disappointment.
ええ、騙し討ちは趣味じゃないから。殺すにしても正々堂々、正面から理由を言った後にする。それならすっぱり後腐れもないし。文句ある？
文句はないわ。そういうの、好きか嫌いかはこの際関係ないでしょうし。けど、
確実性はどうかってことでしょ？私、いまいち命中率悪いし。その辺の問題は場所選びでフォローしようかなと。私はアリスのようにはいかないから、物理的に逃げられない場所にしようと思うんだけど、何かアイデアない？
Alice nodded in thought. The finger that gently rested on her lips indicated that question was to her liking.
鏡はどう？鏡の国なら永遠に閉じ込めていられるけど。
あんた、そういうところ常識ないわよね。
She frowned at Alice's bad taste. It was the kind of idea her roommate found to be inspired, but Aoko knew was out of the question. Aoko was looking for a natural bounded field she could prepare, not a realm bordering of true magic that she couldn't create to begin with.
なら他を当たるの。
I think technically us looking up what her magic was a spoiler. I don't think she can do that yet. But it's fine.
言われなくても分かってるって。けど、そうね。ミラーハウスはいいアイディアかも。
Aoko smirked and shifted her balance away from the wall she was resting on.
サンキュー、アリス。全体の流れは出来上がったわ。ほんと、こういうのってダメ元でも相談してみるものよね。
Now in a good mood, Aoko retreated from the drawing room. Alice tried and failed to visualize what kind of blueprint Aoko had drawn up in her mind, but whatever it was, it appeared to be the thorough kind Aoko was good at. Aoko headed for the bathroom, humming to herself as she went. A year and a half of sharing a living space had taught Alice something. When Aoko Aozaki was in a good mood was in this good a mood, only deep trouble could follow.
青子一人に任せていいのかですって。
Okay, so this symbol right here, I'm actually realizing I thought it was a leaf, but I think we thought it was a teardrop or a sweat drop or whatever. I think it's actually a blue bird feather, which is in reference to the bird that she has named Robin. This guy. It was unclear how long the bird had been in the drawing room. Tripping at Alice, the robin-like bird pranced across the furniture as if it were its property.
そうね。 彼女が一人でやると言ったのだから任せるのが正しい信頼関係なんでしょうけど。
The girl in black raised her arm. The bird, chirping once again, alighted on the outstretched, affectionate finger.
嫌な話だけど信頼と信用はまた違う話よね。
I guess the Twitter bird is gonna say a slur. It probably already has, we just can't understand him. We don't speak stupid. The bird puffed out his stout chest in agreement, and Aoko was none the wiser to her roommate's rather unsettling comments. The following day was a typical overcast one. The day's classes ended as they had started, uneventfully. Winter break was just around the corner, and with it, final exams. Although Misaki High prided itself on discipline, it was still a private school which prompted a culture of independence among its students. Industrious students had a place to explore that side of themselves under the guardianship of the student council president. More easygoing students could spend their time after school as they wished, as long as they were mindful of personal responsibility. The fact that the poster boy of independence was the student council vice president indicated just how vast the spectrum was.
Aozaki, iru
Tobimaru Tsukihime threw open the door with to the satellite student council room, the rumored location of their secret meetings. Despite all appearances, he was the student council vice president, who also happened to be the poor soul responsible for executing the student council's dirty work. One person was waiting for him in the cramped room. The student council president, Aoko Aozaki, sat imperiously in a folding chair, glaring at Tobimaru and his boisterous entrance.
相変わらず寒いなこの部屋。なあ、今度ストーブ購入しようぜ。
So as not to succumb to Aoko's oppressive silence, Tobimaru opened with some casual small talk.
お疲れ様。ところであんた、何しに来たのか分かってる？
まあな、ただ事務的に話すのって寒いじゃねえか。少しぐらい世間話でもしねえとつまらねえだろ。
Tobimaru closed the door and sat down across from Aoko. He was holding a blue envelope.
こういう時は無駄口は叩かない方がいいわよ。なんとなくプロっぽいでしょ。
なる。いや。
Tobimaru was halfway to agreeing with Aoko before he caught himself and began to shake his head. As much as Tobimaru enjoyed the lack of red tape in his new line of work, he was not ready to turn full spy on his first day on the job.
それで、調べ終わったの？
ああ、ついさっき最後の聴取を済ませてきた。詳しいことはその封筒に入ってる。お前から渡された例のファイルもそん中。
He tossed the envelope onto the table.
そう。
I've never seen a manila envelope that looked like that before. Aoko picked it up and began to scan through the documents that were inside. She entered her own little world, not sparing the slightest bit of attention to Tobimaru. If ignoring other people were a skill, she'd be a master at it.
なあ。
何？
一つ聞きたいんだけどよ。
だから、何？
The room was filled with a chilling silence. Aoko continued reading without the ounce of emotion upon her face. Though Tobimaru kept up an air of indifference, his stare remained fixed intently on her.
青崎、そういうの作って楽しい？
楽しいわけないでしょ。こんなの作ったところで、あんまり使う機会なんてないんだから。
そうか。ならいい。
Whether or not he was convinced, Tobimaru stood up from his chair with a disappointing expression.
最後まで読めばわかるだろうが、あんまり確証は取れなかったぜ。というより、おとといあの辺りにいた生徒はいないって話になりそうだ。まあ断定はできないけどな。
No longer concerned over his task, Tobimaru headed towards the door. as if to say that it was out of his hands.
と、そうだ。そういえば、一人だけ該当しなかったやつがいる。季節外れの転入生までは、青崎も調べきれなかったみてえじゃねえか。
Aoko raised her head ever so slightly. He was right. The recent transfer student was not included within the scope of her investigation.
そんなわけで、その字に関しては調べてないぜ。ま、あいつならいつだろうと遅くまでバイトだろうが。いや、人殺しを見たなんてこと口走ってるようじゃ、家で悪い夢でも見てたのかもしれねえか。
Kumamaro cheerfully left the student council room. Simultaneously, Aoko felt her fingers go numb. The document she was holding spilled over on the table.
そんな、まさかね。
She broke out into a cold sweat and tried to tell herself that there must be some kind of mistake. However, the uncomfortable feeling in her gut would simply not go away, perhaps because her intuition was almost always right at times like these.
バカらしい。
And yet she knew what she had to do. This actually is pretty tangential to Rin having to kill Shinji, but she just doesn't, right? Like almost bar for bar. I said Shinji. Emiya. Shinji deserved to die. Fuck Shinji. Shido, that's what I was trying to get to. Their names are similar enough. Shido Emiya. She would not have hesitated to kill Tobimaru if he had been the witness. What if it was the one she was thinking of? Just considering the possibility caused her blood to run cold. Aoko put her forehead in her hands and began to brood. And then, suddenly... Let us talk choice. You will always be faced with choices. A virtuous fool and a wicked sage. You cannot save both. You must pick one. That is the freedom granted to you. 2 years earlier, Aoko muttered the words offered by her grandfather the day she replaced her elder sister as his successor, and let out a sigh of lament.
すごくバカみたい。
She laughed at her own intuition. But it was no joke. If only those words had never been said. Aoko locked up the student council room and left for the day. Calmly, as though nothing untoward had happened, she greeted the students as they passed her in the halls. She was almost shocked by how natural she seemed. There were still plenty of students at the school. The grounds were noisy with chattering of students who had finished the day and yet to go home. Others had club activities. The gray sky looked ready to pour, but nobody seemed to pay it any mind. Amidst the clamor, Aoko had hastened to the school gate. She passed by some students in an animated conversation. They seemed to be talking about their after-school plans. Apparently, they were adamant about maximizing their free time. She could not figure out how they possibly could be so irresponsibly focused on fun, but at the same time, she was in no mood to make fun or feel envious of them. 2 short years prior, she had just been like them. She had been just like them.
根は冷めてるのかな、私って。
She retied her scarf, this time more tightly, to give off an air of solitude, but she was fooling no one. After all, what people who feign solitude are really masking is rejection.
そうよね。孤独っていうのはああいうのを言うもんでしょうし。
The area by the school gate was busier than usual. A group of boys appeared to be huddled behind it. Their transparent attempt to be discreet in terms of both location and loudness of voices did nothing to hide the fact that they were noisily arguing about a girl standing alone on the other side of the street. The girl was cloaked in a black cape. At first glance, it could have been mistaken for her normal attire, but those from Misaki could tell that she wore a uniform of a prestigious girls' school. Said school had no connection to Misaki High in any way, shape, or form. The two schools were miles apart both physically and spiritually. A member of the school's student body was a rare sighting, as the majority were forced to live in the school dorm. Rayan Girls Academy had a reputation as a school for princesses, and it was rare indeed for one of them to be slumming it with common folk. That alone would have been enough to cause a ruckus among the boys, but this girl looked the epitome of class. One could not help describe the standing figure as charming. The way she suddenly, motionlessly waited was reminiscent of a meticulous, composed portrait. Aoko took one look at her and instantly recalling the word solitude.
まったくうちの男子どもは家に帰りもせず陰でこそこそやってるのはそういうこと。
Disgusted, Aoko barged through the gate. At this point, she would normally head home, but today she crossed the street toward the waiting girl.
あれなるは生徒会長様？くそ、追っ払う気なのかよ。痛いんならいつまでだっていさせてあげればいいじゃんか。てか怒られるのあの天使。よその生徒でも校門前にいるぐらいなら別に問題はないと思うけど。
青子女子は容赦ねえからな。下手すると平手だぜ、平手。
The boys ran their mouths behind her back. Not in the mood to shut them up, Aoko walked right up to the girl and offered an informal wave.
どうしたのアリス？こんなところに来たって何も面白いことはないって言ったのに。
Oh. Aoko heard the boys by the gate lose their collective minds and did her best to ignore them.
あのことを確かめに。青子、あの人たち邪魔なんだけど。
分かってる。今追っ払うから。
In contrast to Alice's small voice, Aoko spoke loud and clear. Naturally, this was on purpose so as to deal with the riffraff by the gate all at once.
会長こっち来んぞ。おい押すなよ。後ろのやつどけって。俺校舎に逃げるから。いやでもあの子会長と知り合いなんでしょ。うまく会長に紹介してもらうとか。さすが一年坊主。まだ戦場の現実ってもんを理解していねえ。よし、死の間際までいい夢見ろよ。
Perhaps because too many of them had gathered in one place, the mob entered a frenzied panic as they tried to escape. Aoko addressed them all.
さーて、部活動があるわけでもなし、ただ家に帰るだけの帰宅部の皆さん、こんなところで何を集まってるのか教えてくれる？
The student council president stared daggers at the boys.
何しろ試験前だもの。身になることなら私も教えてほしいけど、まさかガン首並べて女学院のお嬢様を眺めてただけな、声をかける勇気もなくて眺めてただけなんてことは。
Not one of them was brave enough to admit that hit the nail on the head. If any of them had such courage, they would have already been shutting the young lady up.
いや、僕教室にちょっと忘れ物が。こんなオチならダメ元で曲裁しとくんだ。
Tackles are finally ready? Nice. I thought you were making not that.
天文部に行って双眼鏡借りるのどうだ。屋上からお顔を賜るとか。天文部にそんなのねえよ。あるとしたら野鳥同好会じゃね。
それ先月会長が潰したじゃん。鳥めでてる暇があるなら彼女作れって。
No, bro, you're one to talk. You're sitting here gawking like the rest of us. Shut the fuck up.
ああ、彼女作れですか。すみませんっす。今日は裏口から帰るっす。ザキさん。
My dad was making chicken tacos. Chicken must have pinged my brain for chicken parm because you had that the other day.
くそ、じゃあな会長、また明日。
And with those also charming remarks, the boys scattered with their tails between their legs.
楽しそうね、青子。
あ、わかる？
Aoko's response slipped out all too easily. In truth, there were not that many bad apples in Misaki High, and dealing with them wasn't really that hard.
で、ここまで出向くってことは何か分かったの？
結界に残っていた気配の識別は、あとはここで確かめればいいだけよ。
そう。アリス、いつからここに？
下校時刻から。
So she had been here for roughly an hour. Standing in the same place for an hour would be taxing for someone as sensitive to the cold as Alice.
悪いわね、無理させて。
別に好きでやってることだから。
As she spoke, her black eyes fixed upon the gate and the students passing through it. She had likely been observing the gate in this manner for the past hour.
私を待ってたわけじゃないんでしょ。今からでも付き合うわ。
Alice nodded in assent. If Alice was here, it meant that she had not found the witness yet. If she had found the student, Alice would have already gone home ahead of Aoko to begin the research of the student's background.
私の方はダメだった。
She reported the results of Tokumaru's investigation. Alice remained silent. With that, the conversation ended, leaving the two to silently endure the freezing wind. The silent stakeout dragged on endlessly. Students continued to pass the gate, each shocked at the sight of the unusual combo, and head home. After 20 minutes, Aoko let the sigh escape her mouth, perhaps from boredom, or perhaps the cold, or perhaps from both.
ねえ、アリス。帰り黎明に寄ってかない？
Aoko quickly turned to Alice to catch her attention. Reaction. Dawn was the name of one of Aoko's favorite coffee shops. Offered no clear indication as to whether she was critical of Aoko's blasé attitude or agreeing to her whims, Alice's gaze shifted ever so slightly. Aoko followed her stare.
俺、青崎も待ち合わせか?
The sudden voice took her off guard. There was only one person who spoke with this gentle, good-natured tone.
そう。やっぱそうなるわけか。
Turning her back to Alice, Aoko moved her focus to a newly appeared student.
それで、今日は何の用？
All politeness flew out of the window. Already in a bad mood, Aoko's mood plummeted the longer she looked at Sojiro. The subtlety of her expression, however, was lost on him.
いや、これから駅前で水泳部の部長と待ち合わせなんだけど、そのことでお礼を言っておきたくて。
ん？
Well, that was completely unexpected. Thanks. Joining a club? Aoko had a hunch that he was about to say something brainless.
ふーん。お礼って、お礼参りってこと？
ん？
Fortunately, Sojiro was completely unaware of the more sinister implications of the word payback.
よくわからないけど、そんな大したことじゃないよ。ただ、水泳部は夏までそう忙しくないって話だったから。
Sojiro was about to thank her for recommending a club that would not take up much of his time, when Aoko cut him off with an expression of disinterest.
当然でしょ。幽霊部員になりそうな生徒なんて紹介できないから。忙しいあなたでも務まりそうな場所があったから口に出しただけよ。
なるほど、無駄がないね。
His open admiration for her sapped Aoko's will to fight. Finding a suitable club and negotiating with his captain hadn't been an efficient use of her time at all.
とにかくお世話になったから、それで礼を言っときたくて。
Sojiro gratefully dipped his head, but not before the flustered Aoko stopped him.
よしてよ。今あなたにそんなことされても迷惑だから。それで、水泳部はどう？やっていけそう？
God, I fucking love tacos. I'm not the biggest fan of tacos. I would very much eat a burrito over a taco any day. An awkwardness infiltrated her previous sharp gaze. Sojiro was able to pick up on the odd change in her behavior, but could not divine its reason. So he simply started with what he knew so far and reported the most recent information he had.
ああ、水泳部はクビになった。
Damn.
なんでよ！
Aoko instinctively shuddered at the unexpected response. Like a human jack-in-the-box. This unexpected development threw her mind in a tizzy, and she momentarily forgot the complicated feelings she had been wrestling with.
だって今から待ち合わせだって。
それは、これからヤシロギの温水プールに連れて行ってくれるからだよ。
Sojiro stated this very matter-of-factly to the still reeling Aoko.
話がつながらない。そこまでうまくいってるのに、どうして入部を拒否されるのよ、あんたは。
そりゃ、俺が泳げないからだろ。
Oh.
はあ、
Aoko reached up her fingers and pinched her bridge of her nose as she processed his answer. I'm with her, actually.
しずきくん、昨日の私の質問は覚えてる？走るのか泳ぐのか、どっちがいいかってやつ。私の記憶は正しいけど、一応確認しておくわね。あなた、確かに泳ぐ方だって言ったけど。
ああ、昔から泳げないのはなんとか克服したかったんだ。反対に走る方は得意だけど。
Her energy spent, Aoko finally understood.
俺が1年なら1から鍛えてくれたらしいんだけど、あと3ヶ月で3年になる身分なのに、金槌の部員は雇えないそうだ。けど部長が親身になってくれて、これから泳ぎを教えてくれることになったんだよ。
Oh. Sojiro's were spoken from a place of joy, a fact that failed to reach Aoko.
はあ、つまり欠陥品を売りつけたってわけか。こりゃ水泳部の部長に合わす顔がないと。ちょっと待った。しずきくん、水泳部の部長って。
Stopped herself short of a girl. She was afraid of how that might look, that she might not be able to rein herself in if she started. Oh!
もういいわ。気持ちは分かったから、どこか遠くにいてくれない？少し疲れてて、とてもじゃないけどあなたの相手はしていられないの。
飛び丸もそんなことを言ってたな。青崎は昨日と今日、珍しく疲れてるって。何かあったのか？
ちょっとね。でもいいの。解決したみたいだから。それより、しずきくんはどう見える？私、そんなに疲れて見えるのかな？
Why has she asked him this? Blurting out things for no reason and on impulse. That was not usual for her, Aoko. It's so funny hearing this because this is exactly the kind of person she is later. Perhaps it was because she realized that this would be their last chance to have a normal conversation. After a few moments of contemplation, Sojiro conjured up a grin that cut straight through the tension.
そうだな。疲れているというより生き生きしているように見える。仕方なく畑を耕していた狼が久しぶりに狩りに出ることになって機嫌を上げている感じだ。
He seemed so cheerful, like he was so happy for her. Without thinking, Aoko's hands went to her cheeks. If what he said were true, then she was grinning from ear to ear. There was just no way she would have made such a mistake.
とにかくありがとう。じゃあ、また明日。
Perhaps still not comfortable enough to wave to her, he said his goodbye with his sincerity in his voice and took his leave.
待って。こんな話があるの。聞いてから言って。
Aoko called out after her. Her voice was cold as she admonished herself for having been somewhat affable earlier.
意味のない例え話よ。そうね。あなたが空腹で死にそうな時、目の前に同じように空腹で死にそうな2匹の動物がいるとするわ。しずきくんに銃をあげる。それでどちらかの動物を撃って。右はライオンで、左は子猫。
It was a fable-like moral dilemma, especially the way in which it was cruel and rather preachy. The kind that if you thought too hard about, you would never find an answer. Sojiro answered quickly and calmly.
いや、撃たないと思うよ。だって自分の好きにしていいんだろ。それにほら、空腹ならお互い様だ。
He was not in the least fazed by the dilemma. He gave the most innocent response, so innocent in fact that it would give anyone pause.
長生きするわ、あなた。
すごいセリフだな。そんなことを言われたのは多分君が初めてだ。
Adorning his face with a smile wholly out of sync with his comment.
何よそれ。
She regretted stopping. If only she had just watched him go, this conversation would have never happened. Sojiro Shizuki made his way down the slope street. Today, just like every day, he probably had to work late again. And Aoko and Alice remained, with Alice doing what she could to simply blend in.
つくづくこっちのペースを乱してくれるわね。
Aoko clenched her right fist tightly as she cursed out loud. Anything to prevent herself from screaming at the top of her lungs. Whether that scream would be directed towards Sojiro or towards herself was another matter entirely.
Aoko.
So, I'm not sure if the game has been clear about this, but the rules of magic means you can't let anyone know about it, and if they find out, you have to kill them. So, she's sitting here like, fuck, I gotta kill this dude. But he's such a good dude. Ever since Alice, having shown no reaction to any of the other students, changed her expression upon seeing Sojiro.
言わなくてもいい。あいつでしょ、目撃者は。
Her voice was cold as ice. It was the voice of someone talking about a complete stranger. The lion and the kitten. There were pros and cons to choosing either of those animals, the point being that she had asked him to choose one of them. In terms of risk, the lion was a more dangerous choice. The instant the gun was pointing at it, there was a chance they would fight back. Those who chose the lion required more courage, but any sense of guilt that came with holding a gun would be forgotten. The lions were fierce creatures, a poor excuse to shoot an animal, perhaps, but one that certainly helped alleviate the guilt. While the other was a kitten, the weaker creature. But what about the kitten, the weaker creature? It goes without saying that the kitten would be the easier target of the two, but choosing it would be a disquieting decision for anyone. Even if the kitten had no chance to survive, it would still be too senseless to carry out. And to Aoko, Sojiro was that choice.
てっきり、私もそうだと思ってた。
When she had felt that sinking feeling in the student council room, she ignored it. There was no getting around what must be done, she told herself. Until, that is, Sojiro wouldn't said what he did, causing her to resolve to waver. But the discomfort in her chest did not stem from any guilt she may have felt. She could care less for Sojiro. He was weak and would be incredibly easy to deal with. Yet for some reason, she could not dispel her reservations. A transfer student who had moved to the city from the middle of nowhere with no family to speak of. Few would notice if he were to suddenly disappear compared to a person of some renown. If she were to kill him, it would be as simple as wringing a cat's neck. And it would all serve to piss her off. It was too lucky, like everything was neatly handed to her. She wanted to just dropkick it into orbit.
信じられない。私嫌がってる。これは違う。こんなの私じゃない。
Standing behind her, Alice heard all of that muttering. Nevertheless, she seemed to ignore it and said,
彼、首に布を巻いていたわね。
a wholly unrelated topic. Aoko returned to her senses.
ええ、水泳部の首とかけていたのかしら。
Alice had put much thought into this, as if what? Alice had put much thought into this as if it had a deeper meaning to her somehow.
そういえば、あいつ初めて会った時も首に布巻いてたっけ？襟を行儀よく締めてるから目立たないけど。
The conversation turned into idle nonsense, and though it solved none of her current problems, it did help calm Aoko's frazzled nerves.
サンキュー。落ち着いたわ、アリス。それと、気合も入った。善は急げ。あいつが言いふらす前に決着をつけよう。
Pumped once more, Aoko turned her back to the school gate. For now, they would retire to the mansion and prepare for battle.
いいけど、いつ、どこで彼を殺すの？
She said quietly so not to be overheard by anyone else. Normally, Aoko had to rein in that side of Alice out in the open as they were, but this was far from a normal situation.
今日の夜、場所はとっておきの夢の国よ。
She gave a fearless laugh. A strangely pleasant sound like the kind one would make when meeting their lover. Oh, okay. I think that's probably a good place to stop, yeah? What do you think, chat? We gaining some intrigue? The game is also not that long. I think we're like a good. I've paid attention half of almost something as I was listening it on my ear. What? I may have been preoccupied during the latter half, but it does seem good. All right, so let's do a recap real quick. What questions do we have? So the short version is Bro transfers into school, meets Aoko. They butt heads, but not really because Sojiro doesn't have a hate and bone in his body. He's literally the nicest dude ever. Aoko is now faced with a circumstance that's very similar to the circumstance that Rin was faced with in Fate. And because Sojiro's had seen Aoko doing magic, she is now forced with the task of killing him. And she clearly does not want to do that. I got nothing because it's just fate without the serpent of the Holy Grail War. Give it a second, because I'm pretty sure vampires happen at some point. At least that's what happens in Tsukihime. Tsukihime vampires happen basically immediately, and we've only been streaming for about 5 hours, and the game is about 30 hours long, so we're right at the beginning here. And it's very clear we're not going to kill that dude, or something is going to happen, something else is about to happen if we do kill him, right? So. But really, I'm really impressed with the character writing. The character writing here is really good with all the characters, even the side characters. But if there's no questions, let's go tag Link's back for the raid earlier. He's playing System Shock, which is a game that Filler really highly rates. So, guess we'll get to see that in a second. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully, if all else goes to plan, and we'll be playing Eugenics tomorrow. So, yeah, thanks for hanging out. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you when I see you. Later.